everyone, welcome to today's episode where we're going to dive deep into Dr. Julie Smith's book, Why Has Nobody Told Me This Before? This book is absolutely packed with insights and practical tools for improving your mental health and well-being. Dr. Smith is a clinical psychologist who's become hugely popular on social media for her bite-sized mental health tips. In this book, she expands on those ideas to give us a comprehensive toolkit for dealing with life's challenges. So let's start by talking about the overall structure and approach of the book. Dr. Smith breaks things down into 8 main sections covering different aspects of mental health and well-being. Within each section, she combines explanations of the psychology and neuroscience behind our experiences with practical tools and exercises we can use. The tone is warm and empathetic throughout. Dr. Smith really emphasizes that struggling with our mental health is a normal human experience, not a personal failing. Let's dive into some of the key ideas from each section. Section 1, on dark places. This section focuses on understanding and dealing with low mood and depression. Dr. Smith starts by explaining that our moods and emotions aren't just produced by our brains in isolation. They're the result of a complex interplay between our thoughts, physical sensations, behaviors, and environment. She introduces a really helpful tool called the cross-sectional formulation. It's basically a diagram that helps you break down your experience into thoughts, emotions, physical sensations, and behaviors. This can help you start to see the connections between these different aspects and identify places where you might be able to make changes. One of the key ideas here is that when we're feeling low, we often get stuck in negative thought patterns that make us feel even worse. Dr. Smith outlines some common thought biases to watch out for. Mind reading, assuming we know what others are thinking. Overgeneralization, taking one negative event and applying it to everything. Emotional reasoning, assuming our feelings reflect reality. Mental filtering, only paying attention to the negative. All or nothing thinking, seeing things in black and white extremes. The goal isn't to completely eliminate these thoughts, but to get better at recognizing them so they have less power over us. Dr. Smith suggests techniques like labeling your thoughts to create some distance. She also emphasizes the importance of small, consistent actions to lift your mood. Things like regular exercise, maintaining social connections, and establishing routines might seem basic, but they can have a huge impact. The key is consistency rather than waiting for motivation to strike. There's a great section on how to turn bad days into better ones. Dr. Smith suggests doing a values check-in, reflecting on what really matters to you and how you can take small steps in that direction, even when you're feeling low. She also emphasizes self-compassion rather than self-criticism when things are tough. Section 2, on motivation. This section tackles the common struggle of knowing what we need to do, but not feeling motivated to actually do it. Dr. Smith explains that motivation isn't a personality trait or something we can just will into existence. It's more like a feeling that comes and goes. One key idea is that motivation is often a result of action rather than a prerequisite for it. In other words, we often have to start doing something before we feel motivated, rather than waiting for motivation to appear. Dr. Smith differentiates between procrastination, putting things off because they feel uncomfortable, and anhedonia, loss of pleasure in activities, often associated with depression. For procrastination, she suggests techniques like breaking tasks into smaller steps and using the 5-minute rule, committing to just 5 minutes of a task to get over the initial hurdle. For more persistent lack of motivation, she emphasizes the importance of connecting with your values and focusing on the process rather than just outcomes. There's also great advice on how to persist with long-term goals, including building in rest and small rewards along the way. A really interesting section covers how to change your relationship with failure. Dr. Smith points out that fear of failure often paralyzes us, but reframing failure as a learning opportunity can help us stay motivated even when things don't go perfectly. Section 3, on emotional pain. This section dives into how to deal with painful emotions in a healthy way. Dr. Smith starts by challenging the idea that we should try to make difficult emotions go away. Instead, she argues that all emotions serve a purpose, and that trying to suppress them often backfires. She introduces the concept of emotional granularity, essentially, getting better at identifying and naming our specific emotions rather than just labeling everything as good or bad. This might sound simple, but research shows it can have a big impact on our ability to regulate our emotions. There's a great explanation of how emotions are constructed in our brains and bodies. Dr. Smith uses the analogy of emotions being like waves. They rise, peak, and then naturally subside if we don't fight against them. The goal is to learn to surf these emotional waves rather than being overwhelmed by them. She introduces several practical techniques for dealing with intense emotions. Mindfulness, observing our thoughts and feelings without judgment. Self-soothing, using our senses to calm our nervous system, example, deep breathing, listening to music. Opposite action, doing the opposite of what our emotion is urging us to do. Expressive writing, getting our thoughts and feelings out on paper. There's also a really helpful section on how to support someone else who's going through emotional pain. Dr. Smith emphasizes the power of simply being present and listening without trying to fix everything. Section 4, on grief. This section provides a compassionate guide to dealing with grief and loss. Dr. Smith starts by emphasizing that grief is a normal, natural response to loss, not something to be fixed or rushed through. She outlines some common experiences in grief like denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. But importantly, she stresses that these aren't linear stages we move through neatly. Grief is messy and non-linear, and that's okay. There's great advice on how to support yourself through grief, including allowing yourself to feel whatever comes up without judgment, finding ways to maintain a connection with the person you've lost, taking small steps forward each day, expressing your grief through talking, writing, or creative outlets, being patient with yourself and dropping expectations about how you should be feeling. Dr. Smith also addresses the idea of growing around your grief, finding ways to continue living and finding meaning while still honoring your loss. Section 5, on self-doubt. This section tackles the universal experience of self-doubt and low confidence. Dr. Smith starts by challenging some common misconceptions about confidence, namely, that it's something you either have or don't have, or that confident people never feel fear or doubt. Instead, she reframes confidence as a skill we can develop through practice. The key is being willing to step outside our comfort zone and tolerate the discomfort of not feeling totally sure of ourselves. There's a great breakdown of how our inner critic develops and why simply trying to think more positively often doesn't work. Instead, Dr. Smith suggests developing a more compassionate inner voice, one that's honest about our struggles, but encouraging rather than harsh. She introduces several practical exercises for building self-acceptance and challenging negative core beliefs about ourselves. There's also helpful advice on dealing with criticism and disapproval from others without letting it destroy our self-worth. A key message here is that true self-confidence isn't about never feeling doubt or fear, it's about being willing to move forward and try things even when those feelings are present. Section 6, on fear. This section delves into understanding and managing fear and anxiety. Dr. Smith starts by explaining the evolutionary purpose of fear and why trying to eliminate it completely isn't realistic or even desirable. She breaks down the physical and psychological components of the fear response and introduces the idea of the anxiety curve, how our anxiety tends to peak and then naturally subside if we stay in a situation rather than avoiding it. There's great advice on how to calm anxiety in the moment, including breathing techniques and grounding exercises. But Dr. Smith also emphasizes the importance of gradually facing our fears rather than avoiding them, which only reinforces the anxiety in the long run. She introduces several cognitive techniques for dealing with anxious thoughts, including fact-checking our assumptions, considering alternative explanations, redirecting our attention, reframing threats as challenges. There's also a really interesting section on dealing with the fear of death and how confronting our mortality can actually lead to a greater sense of meaning in life. Section 7, on stress. This section provides a nuanced look at stress, both its potential benefits and how to manage it when it becomes overwhelming. Dr. Smith challenges the idea that all stress is bad, explaining how the stress response can actually enhance our performance and help us rise to challenges. She introduces the concept of eustress, beneficial stress versus distress, harmful stress, and provides guidance on how to find the right balance. There's great advice on how to use stress to our advantage in high-pressure situations, including reframing our physical stress symptoms as signs our body is preparing us to perform. For dealing with chronic stress, Dr. Smith emphasizes the importance of regular recovery and replenishment. She introduces several evidence-based techniques for calming our nervous system, including meditation, exercise, and social connection. There's also a helpful section on recognizing and addressing burnout before it becomes severe. Section 8, on a meaningful life. The final section of the book focuses on how to create a life with meaning and purpose beyond just the absence of mental health struggles. Dr. Smith challenges the idea that happiness should be our ultimate goal, arguing instead for a life of meaning that encompasses the full range of human emotions. She introduces exercises for clarifying our personal values and using them as a compass for decision-making. There's great advice on how to set goals that align with our values and translate them into daily actions. A key message here is that meaning often comes from connection, both to others and to something larger than ourselves. Dr. Smith provides guidance on nurturing relationships and finding ways to contribute to our communities. She also addresses how to maintain a sense of meaning and purpose, even in the face of life's inevitable challenges and setbacks. Overall themes and takeaways. Throughout the book, several key themes emerge. 1. Normalize struggle. Dr. Smith consistently emphasizes that experiencing mental health challenges is a normal part of being human, not a personal failing. 2. Build self-awareness. Many of the tools and exercises focus on helping us better understand our thoughts, emotions, and patterns of behavior. 3. Take small, consistent actions. Rather than waiting for motivation or dramatic changes, Dr. Smith advocates for small, daily steps in the direction we want to go. 4. Cultivate self-compassion. Instead of harsh self-criticism, we're encouraged to respond to our struggles with kindness and understanding. 5. Face difficulties rather than avoid them. Whether it's painful emotions, fears, or challenging situations, the book consistently advises moving towards rather than away from our difficulties. 6. Connect with values and meaning. Many of the strategies involve reconnecting with what truly matters to us and using that as motivation. 7. Nurture relationships. The importance of human connection is emphasized throughout as crucial for our well-being. Final thoughts. Why Has Nobody Told Me This Before? Lives up to its title by providing a wealth of practical, evidence-based strategies that many of us wish we'd learned earlier in life. Dr. Smith has a gift for explaining complex psychological concepts in an accessible way and providing concrete tools we can start using immediately. What I particularly appreciate about this book is its balance. It doesn't promise quick fixes or constant happiness, but it also doesn't leave us feeling helpless in the face of life's challenges. Instead, it empowers us with knowledge and tools to navigate the full spectrum of human experiences. Whether you're dealing with a specific mental health challenge or simply looking to enhance your overall well-being, this book offers valuable insights and strategies. It's the kind of resource you'll likely want to return to again and again as you face different situations in life. So that's our deep dive into Why Has Nobody Told Me This Before by Dr. Julie Smith. I hope you found this summary helpful and that it's inspired you to check out the full book. Remember, working on our mental health is an ongoing journey, not a destination. Be patient with yourself, celebrate small victories, and don't hesitate to seek professional help if you need it. Thanks for listening, and take care of yourselves out there.